What's up guys, it's Missy. I am back with another SimCity Buildit video. Today we're going to be doing a contest mayor's video. This is going to be basically just from start to finish everything that you need to know about the contest mayors. Now, we already know that this video is going to be a long one, okay? Because a lot of you guys, believe it or not, after about 300 videos, you guys are still having difficulties understanding everything that goes with the contest mayors. Most of you guys usually who are serious players reach out to me for training, and even then, you know, a lot of you guys get to a point where you're winning every week. But the concept has just been a really hard concept to teach people. And in the process of trying to teach people, I've tried to learn how to teach people. You know, so it's been kind of an experience for both people. You know, them trying to learn from me and me trying to learn the best way to teach this method. Okay, because when I first figured all this shit out, it was after years of watching how the tasks work. You know, when you do a task, what you get back in return, there's patterns to everything. And that is pretty much the a lot of what you need to understand when it comes to the contest. Most people, what they try to do is they try to pick a task based on what? When you sit down and you look at your list and you go to select your task, what are you picking your task based on? Almost everybody goes for value, okay, which is great. That is one of the #1 things that you should be looking at is value. But there are other key components that are important to be successful in the contest of mayors. Now, mind you, that this specific technique is meant for low-level players without regional maps unlocked. Okay, if you are between levels 1 and 30 and you do not have regionals unlocked, then this is how you would play the contest. If you're above level 30 or you have regionals unlocked, then this pretty much goes out the window. Okay, you have too many problems after you unlock regional maps and so many other types of tasks that basically once you stop camping, you're able to do all of those high tasks that these players have to try to work around and avoid, which makes this technique so important that you need to learn it. Because if you want to be a low-level player and basically level up and skyrocket to the top of the leaderboard, yeah, you can do that. But eventually what's going to happen is you're going to be too high level to basically accomplish anything good. So you have to avoid these upgrades and still be successful. Now, you can do that with using this technique. So basically, the first thing that you should do is you need to learn everything that you can about the tasks that you are that you have in front of you, that you're trying to make a selection on. If you don't know about the task, then you can't possibly make the right selection. Okay? So oftentimes people will look at their list without knowing everything about that task, and then they'll say, well, okay, I don't know what to choose. Well, of course you don't know what to choose. Because the only, what you're doing when your brain looks at this list is it's looking at the list and it's taking a mental note and it's going through every task and it's formulating basically a definition of each task. At some point your brain says, this is the one out of all these that I choose. Okay? What are you basing that choice on? Do you even know? And that is where mistakes come in. People aren't paying attention to why they're making the choices they're making, right? They just look at their list and they think, okay, well, I'm going to pick this. And that's kind of what the training course is, or is supposed to be. So when you go through my training course, I ask you, why did you pick that? What went through your head? What were you thinking at that time to make you choose that task over this task? And more often than not, people have no answer. You know, I'll say they'll make a huge mistake. They'll pick something like a 1400 sugar, and they'll have, let's say, a 1600 cement sitting there. And I'll say, okay, what about this task? Why did you choose this one over that one? And they're just looking dumbfounded. Like, well, I don't know why. And it's like, really? So you just decided to do a sugar task, which you know comes back and ends up being a problem for you, over taking 100 and something points more to do a task that opens up better opportunities for you. And you have no reason why you would do that. And they just look dumbfounded. They're just like, no, I don't know why. And it's like, I'll tell you why, because you're not thinking. You were looking at this list without very much thought, and you just picked whatever was convenient for you. You probably had the sugar done, and you just decided that you would just take the easy points, the easy road. And in fact, it wasn't the easy road, it was the hard road. It ended up coming back and screwing your day up even more. And they're just like, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And it's like, okay, if you want to win, you can't do that kind of shit anymore. Okay, it's no longer about what's convenient for you, it's about what's right. Now, certainly there are things that you will need to work around, okay? You know, like if the monster's not there for a day and a half, you're not going to sit there and be like, well, I'll just sit here and waste a day and a half of the contest because the monster's not here and he's my highest, next option. That is not what you would do, okay? You need to be smarter than that. You've got to remember that you do have a time limit in which you need to complete these tasks. You need to make sure that you can do every task that is possible to be given to you. Now, at your level, without regionals unlocked, you can be given any number of upgrades while you have one of each in your list, okay? So it's not like it caps out on 4 upgrades in the list at any one time. What'll happen is if you are able to make that house, it can be in your list. If you look here at the document that you guys have been given, this is very important information. You need to know your city level, your league, your tasks remaining, time remaining. All of this stuff is very important when you go to make your selection. City level tells me how many slots you have unlocked in your factories, because if you're level 24, you can have up to 40 slots. If you are in the Mega League, that tells me that you would be using your limited tasks, such as, war card upgrades, beach, mountain upgrades, things like that. Epic projects. Tasks remaining. This is a huge, huge, important piece of information that you need. This tells you what stage of rotation you're in and if the person has wasted too much time to participate properly. Meaning, let's say the person is in Mega, they have 60 tasks remaining and 1 day left. Do you advise that they play as they normally would using their limited tasks? No, you would not, because they would likely not finish in 1 day. Okay? It's not impossible to burn through 75 tasks in a day, especially as a high-level player. But as a low-level player with limited factory slots, with basically the process of wanting to win, it is very difficult to do that, okay? Okay, time remaining. Time remaining is another key piece of information that you need, and the reason for that is because of basically the same reason that I just stated. You need to know basically where you're at if you need to continue to participate, basically competitively or just for the purpose of points, for the purpose of your pass. Now, the tasks also tell you another key piece of information, and that is rules of rotation. If nobody here is familiar with that, you better get familiar with it, okay? Because it will screw you up if you're not. The rules of rotation are right here, okay? They're very, very simple. Between the first 1 and 50 tasks, okay? So if you have 60 tasks in Mega, then by the time you hit 10 tasks remaining, the rules of rotation would then shift. So the first 50 tasks, the rules of rotation is that opportunity is more important than value. What I normally say is opportunity trumps value. That is why you see a greater sign on the opportunity side and a lesser sign on the value side. So what this means is that you're going to take value opportunity, and an opportunity into consideration. But in the end, opportunity trumps value, but there's still opportunity within value. And we'll get more into that later, okay? You'll understand what I'm talking about once we get into the CoM math. Now, at this point, basically what you're doing is if you have a, let's say, a flower task for 1,100 points, and you have, let's say you have a 1,200 keys, okay? Keys is higher than flower, right? But by how many points, and is it one of your main and rotatable tasks? Is it a premium task? What do you know about that task? Keys is a task that repeatedly comes back. At 1200 points, it's at its lowest value, okay? So at 1200 points being at its lowest value and always in your list, it opens up zero opportunity if you basically do it. If you rotate that in, it offers zero opportunity, meaning eventually it's going to circle back around, it's going to give it to you again, and eventually it'll be worth that same 1200 points. And you will have basically have dropped your average, because you're trying to get 2000 points per task. You will have dropped your average, 800 points, to ultimately end up going in circles, okay? So flower being 1000 or 100 points lower is better opportunity. So you are looking at it saying, well, if I do the flower, I do take 100 points less than what I would take if I did keys. However, doing the flower will result, or should result, in a much better series of tasks, as in the flower doesn't usually just come right back like the keys will, and other tasks can come in, the game will try to level you out, and then you can keep proceeding on with your other rotatable options. Whereas keys just puts you at a dead stop again. It just circles back around eventually, usually within 2 to 3 rotations, and it comes right back, and then you're right back there looking at the same list with less points. Now, that is why you need to know everything you need to know about each task, because not all non-premium tasks do that. Not all tasks are the same. Every task is different, okay? Every single task has its own algorithm. Now, that is listed in this quick guide here. Everything that you need to know about each task is listed in this document, and that is why you need to get very, very familiar with this document. You need to memorize everything about these tasks. That way you can make the right selection when you compare them. 10 tasks remaining. Okay, so you've done 50 tasks and you've got 10 of them left. Basically what you're doing at this point in the contest is you are looking at your list, and you are looking at any other rotatable options you may have, and then you are trying to rotate any of them that would be opportunity trumps value before you get to your tickets. Because by the time those 10 tasks are up and you get to your tickets, that is where the rules of rotation will shift, okay? And the rules of rotation now becomes value trumps opportunity. Why is that? Because you only have 15 tickets left, right? So you can't continue to make room for opportunity that basically is running out, right? You're running out of tasks, so opportunity doesn't matter anymore. Now what matters is that you can score as many points as possible within the last 15 tickets that you have. So if you have a flower task for 1100 and you have a keys task, what you would do in this situation, because the numbers are so close, you would look at the fact that flower still does open up a little better opportunity. So it really could give you more than that 100 points that the keys give you. But we need to look at exactly how many tickets you have. Are we talking 15 tickets? Or are we talking 2 tickets? If it's 2 tickets, I would go with the keys, because you're pretty much running out of tasks. If you still have 14 tickets you're going to be utilizing and it's only 100 points, then I would ask to see your leaderboard. I would look and I would see how far down are second and third place. If they're hot on your heels, I'm going to say, nah, you better go with the points. We can't risk it. But if they're not hot on your heels, I would say, you know what? Yeah, you can risk that 100 points for better opportunity possibilities. And more than likely, you would result in something, better. But that, again, comes with common sense. And that is something that you will hopefully learn, as you progress through the guide, as you progress through the weeks of CoM, and you really pay very close attention to the algorithms and everything that you know about the task. These things will start to become more and more clear to you, okay? And I realize a lot of this stuff probably is not making any sense to you guys. I'm trying the best I can because this is such a hard topic to teach. Now, I do have a system, however, that should make it a lot easier for you guys to utilize. But ultimately, you can't do CoM math until you know everything that you need to know about each task. So the very first thing that you do at the beginning of the week, so you've started the contest, you've got 60 tasks remaining, you've opened your list. What is the very first thing that you always do? Always, always, always. If you're looking at someone else's list, you do setting the scene. You need to know what level they are, what league they're in, all that good stuff. If you're looking at your own list, you know what level you are, you know what league you're in, you know all that stuff. Okay, so the very first thing that you would do is you would do your task assessment. Now, your task assessment is, and this was one of the questions that pretty much everybody in my training course, almost everybody in my training course failed, which was kind of like, really, dude? A task assessment is where you go through each task at the beginning of the week, right at the start. Before you start anything, you go through and you say what you know about each task. Now, you're doing that for a reason, okay? You're getting familiar with your list. You're refreshing your memory on everything that you know about each task so that you can make the selections that you need to make. If you don't know anything about each task, you can't possibly pick the right choice. So if you don't know the tasks, you need to get familiar with the tasks. Now, once you've went through your list, then you would go through, and you can do this at the same time, but until you get more experienced, I usually recommend kind of doing them separate. Then you go through and you do your task breakdown. And that is where you mark things main, rotatable, no touch, cancel. Okay, so you're going to put an M next to them if they are a main task. You're going to put an R next to them if they are a rotatable task. You're going to put NT next to them if they are something that you will not touch. And then you can put a cancel next to them if they are a cancel, like a no-touch cancel, meaning I'm not going to touch this upgrade, but if it comes to needing to cancel it, I can. So you put NT/C, okay? This helps you better break down the list into sections so that you're not going around in circles getting overwhelmed looking at, 12 options versus, 4 options. Because what it really comes down to is you only have so many options in the list that you can work with, okay? Now, main tasks are there's usually 3 at the start of the contest, okay? These are tasks that are over 2,000 points that you can actually complete, right? So basically, if you have a war delivery for 3,000, that would be a main task. That is an obvious choice, okay? It's a premium task. It's something that can be worth 3,000 points. It's got a high opportunity. The value opportunity is really good, and you would mark it as a main task. That would be your first selection, okay? You look down the list and you see you have a launch 2000 VU. That is a main task. We know that this is a premium task, and this task is basically can be worth up to 3,000 points. That's what premium means. And that it is a main choice because it's at 2,000 points, so it's holding one of our 2K place values, and we would mark it with an M. Then we look further down the list and we see that we have a 2,000 monster. Now, this is a non-premium task. We would not do it if it was anything less than 2,000 points, but because it's 2,000 points, we need to get it out of the way as soon as the right opportunity arises. It's at that 2,000 place value, meaning it's holding one of our 2K placements, and it is a main task. So we would write MMM, okay? Then we would go with value. First thing we would look at is value. We would go with the highest one with the best opportunity. Because war deliveries does bring good opportunity, it also brings good value opportunity. Value opportunity is where you only have so many items in your list, and only so many of those items can be worth a certain value, okay? When you look at your list, you notice how there's not all 3,000 point tasks. There's usually 1 or 2. You notice that there's usually up to 4 tasks worth 2,000 points, and the rest are right around 1,500 to 800 points. The the game gives you a variation of basically place values. If you have all of your high place values taken up by things you can't do, then as you rotate, you're going to continue to get low place values. So you have opportunity that opens up when you complete tasks of higher values. They open up those chairs, so to speak. Imagine it like you have 4 chairs, okay? And each person holding a 2,000 place value can sit down in one of those 4 chairs. Once those chairs are taken up, you can no longer get 2,000 point tasks, or it's really, really slim, okay? So you need to get one of those people to get the hell up out of the chair so that you can continue to get more 2,000 point tasks. Now, essentially, what you want to look at is you have to look at everything. Whenever you make any selection, you have to look at everything. And the CoM math system allows you to look at everything in a much easier way than trying to remember it all off the top of your head. That is why I formulated the CoM math system. So when we do our breakdown, you guys will see all this stuff firsthand. We're just going to go through it the way that we are, and then I'll show you guys how to actually write this stuff out. Okay, so you have marked them all. You've marked all of your main tasks. Now you start to look further down your list and you see a 1200 epic project. This is a rotatable task. Why is this rotatable and not a main task? Because it's something that you can do to open up better opportunity, and it's below the 2,000 threshold. Okay, so that makes it rotatable, meaning when all of the main tasks are gone, that is when you move to your rotatable tasks, and you use the same exact formula to determine which rotatable option is the best option. Once that rotatable task is gone, it will either be replaced with a main task or another rotatable. And then you would make the same selection based on, or you would make the same, you would do the same analysis to make a selection on either another rotatable option or the main option that has been given to you. Let's say that you do a 1200 epic project and you get a 2,500 more deliveries. You would go back up to the top of your list because this is now a main task, and you would do the more deliveries. The rotatable options are there to open up main tasks. That is essentially what you're doing. You are doing all of your main tasks, then you're using the rotatables to rotate out for main tasks. That is the whole technique here. If you don't rotate out these rotatable tasks, then you don't get better main tasks. If you rotate out the types of tasks that you should not rotate out, the ones that are always in your list and worth a low value, then those will just keep coming back worth a low value and always being in your list. For example, a repair the launch VU repairs. If you do a repair task that's lower than 1,600 points, so there's one place value lower than 1,600, that's 1,200. Repair's almost always in your list, and it comes back within usually about 2 to 3 rotations. If you have it in your list where 1,600 or higher, it's holding a good value opportunity, and it needs to be rotated out to make room for those value placements to come in. However, in terms of opportunity for better tasks, it doesn't do that. So if it's always going to be in your list, then you would prefer that it be there of a lower value, right? Because you need other tasks to come in worth a higher value. So the only time you rotate those tasks during rotation 1 and 2, which would be the first 60 tasks, you would always do 1,600 or higher on the repairs when the time is right. But if it's at 1,200, you do not touch it. Under any circumstances, you do not do repair unless you are in reverse rotation and you are in a jam. Now, reverse rotation, this is a much harder concept for people to understand. So remember when we talked about how the game is always trying to level you out? You ever notice how you pick a 1,000 point war booster and you get a 3,000 point task in return? When you calculate your average, what you're doing is you're taking the total points earned and dividing that by total tasks done. Now, for those of you who were confused about that, you would take your score that you have now and you would divide it by the total amount of tasks that you have completed. This will give you a number. That number represents the overall average of points that you're earning per task. So what you do is you want to try to earn 2,000 points per task. Now it's going to be pretty difficult to do that as a low-level player. As a high-level player, it's super, super easy. But as a low-level player, it's really difficult to earn 2,000 points per task because you have all these upgrades in your list, blocking certain things from coming in. Now, what you have to do is you have to remember that the game has basically times where it does really, really good, and then it has times where it doesn't do very good. Okay, so maybe you ever notice how no matter what you seem to be rotating, you're just getting garbage for like 15, 20 tasks. You had a really good start to the contest. You know, everything was doing really good. You're like, damn, man, I got like a 2,800 average. I'm doing kick-ass. Then all of a sudden, everything just plummets. No matter what you pick, everything is it's just giving you trash. And that happens for a reason. You have uptime and downtime during the contest. Now, more often than not, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, your uptime is at the beginning of the contest. As you rotate out your options, it kind of fluctuates up and down throughout the contest, and then usually towards the end of the contest is where you have the most downtime. You know, that's where you kind of start to taper off and you just get garbage. Now, what does happen though, and it's rare, but it does happen, is you start off with really shitty tasks. And the beginning of your week is terrible. No matter what you do, your average is awful and you are frustrated. Okay? Everything that you're picking isn't working. You're thinking, I burnt through 30 tasks, I have a terrible score, I'm not going to be able to come back from this. Basically that you're not even going to bother trying this week. If you can notice that you are in a downtime, and you'll get better at it, you'll start to notice like, hey man, I should have had some better tasks by now, what's going on? This is when reverse rotation kicks in. This is where you would do the opposite of what you would normally do. You would do the repairs and the keys and things like that in an attempt to burn through those tasks versus your good tasks. That way, those tasks usually have a way of being worth 1,200 to 2,400 points. You know they're always going to be there, so if you continue to do them, you can boost your average up just a little bit than you normally would, burning up all of your rotatable options. Then, when you, after about 15 or 20 tasks, or whenever you notice you start to get good stuff again, then you would stop that rotation, flip it back around, and you would do it the right way when it picks up. And that way you don't waste all of your really good stuff during this time where it's just giving you trash. So, you know, and I know, that the game's not going to continue to give you really badass tasks and then have you use them and then, you know, like, let's say they're of a low value. Let's say it's like a launch rare war attack. You know the game's not going to give you that, let's say, 15 times in one round of CoM. Or it's very unlikely. Okay? So, if you burn through those tasks when you're in a downtime, then you basically end up in a situation where when you get in your uptime, you got nothing left, right? And so if you can recognize reverse rotation, which reverse rotation is where pretty much everything in your list is worth a low value. All of your tasks are pretty low, you've had a terrible run, and you're basically exchanging out low non-premiums for higher premiums later, okay? So that is the technique. Now, again, that is a very difficult process to comprehend. It takes some practice. This isn't something that pops up frequently, so if you do a task, let's say you do a rotatable task and you get a crappy task in return, that is not reverse rotation. Okay, you'll know when you're in reverse rotation. You'll be miserable. Your score will be absolutely terrible. And every task in your list is going to be garbage. And no matter what you do or how you do it, it's going to continue to be garbage. So basically you would rotate garbage while you're getting garbage so that you can keep all your good stuff for when the garbage is done flowing in. Okay, so focus more on basically the regular CoM, okay? Now, I don't know if it's going to be this week or next, but SimCity released that they're putting out contest mayor streaks, which basically what those will be is, nobody really knows exactly how it's going to work, but I read the FAQ section, and basically what it sounds like is they're going to randomly award you a CoM streak, and they're going to say, okay, if you do this task, you get bonus points, and you have to complete every task within the streak, otherwise you don't get any of the points. Now, I don't know if that means you don't get any of the bonus points. I don't know if that means that those tasks are wasted, or if it's like, okay, you get those tasks back because you didn't use them, you didn't gain any experience for them. I don't know if you can see the streaks, the tasks that are in the streak previously, so you know, like, hey, I've got to do these 3 tasks, these are the ones that I have to do. Or if they're just going to hit you with a big surprise, like, yeah, haha, you did a flower task, but now you get an upgrade that you can't do because you're camping, so your streak just went down the drain and you lost all these points. I don't know how it's going to work. Until I know how that's going to work, I can't really give you guys much of anything. It'll take me probably the first week to get everything understood. I'm going to have to do a lot of studying on it. But focus more now because on this and the process of learning it the regular way, because even after the streaks or whatever, after those come in, the process is still going to be the same, okay? You're still going to have main tasks, rotatable tasks, and all that, so don't be discouraged by that. All right, so more delivery. Okay, so basically you're going to open up this document, and for those of you who have trouble with it on your phone, what you can do is you can go to the top of the document. There's 3 dots here. You click that, and you can hit print layout, okay? This will make it to where it shifts to how it would look like if it was going to print. And this will help you guys see it more clearly rather than like in columns if you're looking on a phone. Okay. So you're going to go through each one of these and you're going to read it. Now, I do have a video where I go through this. I read it to you guys. I explain what it all means. I'm not going to do that now because that video took like 2 hours. So if you're interested in that video, which I would recommend that you watch it, go watch that video. I'm going to briefly explain one of these so you have an idea of what you're looking at. And then we're going to get into the CoM math. Okay? So, this is a war delivery task. The P next to it means that it is a premium task. That means that it can be worth up to 3,000 points. Now, every task has a definition. It has algorithm, opportunity, and risk. So, algorithm is the rate in which this task will come back. Okay? So, if the task is a good task with a high algorithm rate or a good algorithm rate, then you would want to do it. If the task has a high algorithm rate and it's not a good task, then you wouldn't want to do it, right? Opportunity is basically what the result is of doing that task. So if by doing this task it continually comes back in your list, then that opportunity would be low because you would basically open up 1 or 2 things and then it would come right back and you would be right back in the same situation, looking at a list with the same options available to you. The risk. Now, risk is usually formulated based on what could go wrong by doing this task. Is it going to cause you some form of downtime? Like, for example, chemicals and sugar. If those are below the 1600 threshold, you don't do those tasks. Not because you can't find the 4 hours worth of time to do them, but because if they come back, and they pretty much always do, once they're in your list, they pretty much always return. Basically, what'll happen is it'll come back and it could be worth the same value, which would basically mean that you did nothing. You accomplished nothing by doing it. It is now in your list worth the same value, and that value is low because, like I just said, you would do it if it was over 1600. Or it comes back with a high value, and you end up in a situation where you're basically forced to do it and take the downtime, which could really hurt you later. So there is risk with that, and then there's also risk with upgrades. Okay, so when you rotate out, let's say that you have a really wide open list, meaning you have no upgrades whatsoever in your list, and you have a war booster at the bottom for 1,000 points. I would recommend looking at some of your other rotatable options first and seeing if you can get some low upgrades to start rolling in before you rotate that war booster. More often than not, the war booster, or any rotatable option for that matter, will result in a kickback of higher value, usually. So usually if you do a task worth 1,000 points, you get a higher value task. War Booster has a really good chance to kick back a 3K upgrade, or a 3K war deliveries, or something of a 3K value. So let's say that you're looking at your list, and you have launch VU for 1,000, you have a launch rare war attack for 1,000, and you have, let's say, a delivery to Tokyo for 1,000. Those are 3 premium tasks at a low value, right? So if you rotate in that 1,000 war booster, you have a really good opportunity or risk of getting a high upgrade, because so many of your premiums are in your list of a low value. That would mean that you would want to look at your risk. What are you risking? You know, what can you do to eliminate the risk of getting a high upgrade, or to lessen the risk, I should say. Now, you're always going to have upgrades. You're going to have to work around them, but let's say that it was a little different. Let's say that your list consisted of a 1,200 Old Townhome and a 1,200 Latin. Those are the 2 upgrades that can be worth the most. They can be worth up to 3,600 points. This means that if they're in your list worth 1,200 points, and they can be worth up to 36, that you would basically leave them sit, knowing that you're good to go. At least 2 of the upgrades that can be worth over 3,000 points cannot come in worth that value, meaning you have basically lessened your risk of getting a high upgrade in return. Doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, it just means that it can't happen with those 2, which is really good. So let's say that you get 1 upgrade in your list that is worth 3,000 points, but you have no other upgrades in your list. Usually what I advise is that you allow that 1 high upgrade to sit, and you do 1 or 2 other rotatable options and see if the game is going to continue to kick you upgrades. If it does, let those upgrades stack up and then cancel that high upgrade to get that place value back open. But essentially what you're doing here is you're allowing the game to give you everything it's going to give you, and hopefully that high upgrade will block high upgrades from coming in during this time, and it will kick you low upgrades, right? Once you've stacked up a few low upgrades, then you can cancel the high upgrade for that place value opportunity, okay? So that is how you read these definitions on each task. That is what they mean. Each one has a different definition. Each one has a different algorithm, opportunity, and risk. These are extremely important. They're things that you need to know before you can make your selection. You're going to need to probably carry this guide with you for a long time, you know, until you can memorize all this stuff and get the patterns down. It's going to be a process where you learn all this stuff. Now, let's get into basically breaking this down firsthand. It's all fun and games until you're sitting there in front of a list going, okay, I heard everything she said and I'm still unbelievably confused, right? So we are going to go through and I'm going to show you guys how to mark things as main, rotatable, no touch, and then we're going to go through and I'm going to explain in depth how this CoM math system works, okay?